Mount Everest is as unforgiving as it is irresistible to the throngs of climbers who visit every year with dreams of making it to the top. Dr. Jon Kedrowski from Vail was one of those visitors with big dreams in 2012 when he arrived at Everest for the first time. He almost made it to the top when a disastrous windstorm developed.
I had to quit because it was blowing 100 miles per hour, and I helped a couple other people to safety that night, and then I went back to base camp and rested for like 3 days, but I was like 800 feet from the summit and had to turn around. So basically, actually, when you look at this photo, how close I was to the summit, turned around, went back, rescued a few people, brought them to safety with some other Sherpas and friends that were up there, and then I got back to the base camp and thought, oh, this is it for me.
But an invitation from a great Sherpa changed his plans.
One of the Sherpas named Jangbu was the Sirdar, which he's the head of all the Sherpas that were overseeing the other members that had hired a Sherpa. And 2 of our members were still in camp 2, and he was in base camp with me, and he's like, hey, John, like, I have to go back up to oversee these other clients anyway with their Sherpas. What are you gonna do? Do you wanna climb back up? I know you don't have anybody to climb with. Do you wanna go with me? And I was like, yeah, because it would be like if LeBron James asked you to play horse, like, would you say no? Like, this guy Jangbu had summited 12 times.
Kedrowski was one of the lucky ones who made it to the summit that season. 7 others died just days earlier from exposure, exhaustion, and other injuries related to high altitudes. The list of ways Mount Everest can kill you is long, but that didn't stop Kedrowski from returning 6 more times, and in some cases bringing some high-profile friends along with him. Here he is with Grammy-nominated artist Mike Posner in 2022. And with fitness entrepreneur Devon Levesque in 2024.
Good morning from the top of Mount Everest.
Who set the world record for highest altitude backflip while on the summit. Kedrowski has turned his love of adventure into a lucrative business as a one-on-one guide.
A long-term goal of Mount Everest is $250,000 with the right program.
Some critics say that summiting Everest has become increasingly accessible to wealthy and inexperienced climbers, causing overcrowding and deadly traffic jams. Kedrowski agrees and says respect for traditional climbing methods has been lost in recent years.
It wasn't these big siege tactics where the expedition is a huge operation. There's a bunch of Sherpas carrying loads to camp 2 and 3 and 4. They're carrying oxygen up there. The early expeditions, they didn't really have as much Sherpa support on a lot of them, and people weren't paying much, so it was before commercialization. So the mountaineers would climb and still take a rest day or 2, but then they'd carry another load and carry it up to camp 2, and then they'd come back, and then they'd maybe, instead of resting for 3 or 4 days, they'd rest for a day, and then they'd go back up, carry another load. And so that traditional expedition style is being lost and being absorbed by commercialization now, where the goal has been now to make it as easy on the client as possible, which then lends itself to allowing everybody and anybody to go. And that is leading to problems, though, in Nepal especially, because Nepal is taking the money for the permits and the expeditions from the companies that are bringing people there. The companies are charging a bunch, but it's also not allowing people to screen their clients. So anybody thinks they can just, oh, I see a photo on Instagram and I can go climb Everest. And that's just not true.
Are you part of the problem of the commercialization?
I mean, I'm bringing people there, yes, but I feel like my ethical duty is the models of which and the ethics of which I stand for and the preparation for clients is within the realm of safety and leave no trace ethics and ethics for the mountain, picking up your trash, and the style of climbing, meaning like, for example, if you leave the South Col at 7 or 8 p.m. to summit, you're summiting at sunrise, and then you're getting down and back to the high camp before 9 or 10 a.m. And that's how you're supposed to climb Everest. A lot of these teams that come with people that are either not fit enough, climbing too slow, haven't properly acclimatized, we're taking 3 times that long, and then they run out of oxygen, and they're just not prepped in the ethics of how to properly climb the mountain.
Knowing how to properly acclimatize to high altitudes can mean the difference between life and death.
Everest takes a long time for your body to adjust to the altitude by going high, sleeping low, going higher, sleeping lower, and it's a 4 to 6 weeks process. People don't understand what true acclimatization is, and they'll go and try to climb to camp 1, camp 2, They'll stay there. They won't come back to rest and recover. Then they'll go up and try to climb to 3 and 4 and go higher, and then just try to summit without coming down to rest and acclimatize. And so that's becoming a problem, because then people, when they're unacclimatized, take too long on summit day and they get into trouble, and then they steal bottles of oxygen that they need that are left up there from other expeditions that have carried it up there for their summit. So, you know, last year we had a scenario where we had 70 some bottles stolen from the high camp by teams that were up there before they should have been up there. This year we got like netting and locked them up so that no one could steal our bottles. And that's starting to become an ethical problem that Nepal is still letting happen, because they'll take permits, money from anybody, and they'll allow anybody to come, versus the north side of Everest on Tibet doesn't allow it that way.
I reached out to Thakur Raj Pandey, Senior Vice President of the Nepal Mountaineering Association, to get his response to claims that Nepal issues too many permits, leading to deadly overcrowding. Pandey agrees there is overcrowding, especially in May and June. However, he says the Nepalese government is starting to implement new policies that will help, such as the one permit policy, where a single authority would be responsible for issuing and managing all permits for a given region, making it easier to track climber information and enforce regulation. Another new policy Pandey mentioned was requiring climbers to have climbed a minimum of a 7,000-meter mountain before attempting Everest. He says this will divert climbers to other mountains in Nepal. Kedrowski thinks this is a good solution, not only for overcrowding, but for training as well.
Train mountains with mountains. Like, you should train for the highest mountain in the world by climbing actual mountains. Like, yeah, the gym can kind of help. Yeah, step ups, yeah, weightlifting, but like, there's nothing better than going out and doing the real thing to prepare for the real thing. I think that's very true with life.
There are many similarities between life and mountain climbing.
The summit of Everest. So awesome to be up here.
Which may explain why so many people risk everything to do it. Kedrowski says the mountain is a metaphor for life's challenges and obstacles, and mastering the mountain means mastering one's own mind by pushing through fear and uncertainty.
Did it. Now we gotta get down safe.
He says the mountains belong to everyone, but you just have to be safe, patient, and well prepared to make it to the top. For TV8 in Vail, I'm Avijah Scarbrough.